The throne room of the Valthran Empire stretched across what humans would call half a football field, all polished obsidian and floating crystal formations that hummed with ancient power. Queen Valera sat upon her elevated seat, her forearms crossed in a gesture that her advisors had learned meant imminent violence. Her chitinous armor gleamed purple-black in the ethereal light, and her compound eyes focused with predatory intensity on the human standing before her. Marcus Webb stood in his salvage suit, covered in asteroid dust and looking thoroughly unimpressed by the grandeur around him. In his hands, he held the sword of eternal flame, a weapon forged in the heart of a dying star and lost to the Valthran people for 3 centuries. The blade still flickered with that characteristic blue-white fire, casting dancing shadows across his weathered face. "You dare," Valera hissed, her mandibles clicking in rage. "You dare return the sacred blade of my ancestors, as if it were some trinket you found in your pocket." Marcus shifted his weight, his magnetic boots clanking against the floor. "Ma'am, I found it stuck in an asteroid in the belt between Proxima 7 and 8. Figured you might want it back." The queen rose from her throne, her impressive 8-foot frame towering over the gathered court. Her royal guards tensed, plasma weapons charging with an audible whine. The air itself seemed to thicken with her fury. "Want it back," she repeated, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried across the entire chamber. "The sword of eternal flame is not some lost tool. It is the symbol of our imperial power. It shows the first queen. It has passed through 70 generations of rulers. It vanished during the War of the Shattered Nebula, when my great-grandmother fell in battle against the Corthan swarm." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah, I read about that in the data burst. Tragic stuff. Anyway, here you go." He held the sword out, handle first, with the casual ease of someone returning a borrowed wrench. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled courtiers. Several of the queen's advisors made warding gestures with their various appendages. One elderly Valthran in ceremonial robes actually fainted, caught by his attendants before he hit the floor. "You will not," Valera said, descending the steps toward him with deliberate slowness. "Simply hand me the most sacred artifact of my civilization as if it were a datapad or a ration bag." "Would you prefer I kept it?" Marcus asked, genuine confusion crossing his face. "Because I've got to tell you, it's been causing some problems in my cargo hold. Keeps setting things on fire when I hit turbulence." The queen stopped 3 paces away from him, close enough that he could see the intricate patterns etched into her facial armor. Her breathing came hard and fast, her thorax plates rising and falling with barely contained emotion. "Do you understand nothing of honor?" she demanded. "Of ceremony? Of the weight of history? This sword has drunk the blood of 10,000 enemies of the Empire. Queens have held it aloft as they conquered star systems. Poets have composed epics about its light in the darkness of space. And you speak of it causing problems with your cargo." Marcus considered this for a moment. "Well, when you put it that way, I can see why you're upset. But respectfully, Your Majesty, I'm just a salvage operator. I pull scrap and lost equipment out of debris fields. When I find something that belongs to someone, I return it. That's the job." "The job," Valera repeated, her voice rising again. "The sword of eternal flame is worth more than your entire planet's economy. It is beyond price, beyond measure. Nations have risen and fallen in its wake. And you speak of jobs and procedures." "Ma'am, if I may," Marcus said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "I've been floating in that asteroid belt for 3 weeks, mapping the debris from your ancestors' battle. I've found 743 Valthran burial pods, all of which I logged and transmitted to your government per interstellar salvage law. I found pieces of ships, weapons, armor, and personal effects from both sides of that war. And yes, I found this sword wedged into a hunk of rock that was probably part of your great-grandmother's flagship. He took a step closer, still holding the sword between them. I could have kept it. I could have sold it to any number of collectors who would pay enough to set me up for life. I could have mounted it on my wall and told stories about it in every port bar from here to the rim, but I didn't. Because it's not mine. It's yours. So please, with all due respect, just take the sword. The throne room fell absolutely silent. Even the ambient hum of the crystal formations seemed to dim. Valera stared at the human before her. This impossible creature who had just reduced the most significant event of the century to a simple transaction. "You don't want payment," she said, and it was not a question. "No." I am. You don't want a title, land? A place in our history as the one who restored our greatest treasure? No. Ma'am, you simply want to return it and leave. Marcus shrugged, the gesture looking odd in his bulky suit. I've got 3 more sectors to survey before my permit expires. Time is money, Your Majesty. Valera's mandibles twitched in what might have been the Valthran equivalent of a smile. She reached out with her upper right hand and grasped the sword's handle. The moment her chitinous fingers closed around it, the blade erupted into brilliant blue flame, brighter than it had been in Marcus's grip. The fire spread up her arm like living lightning, and her compound eyes blazed with reflected light. The court erupted into cheers, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Guards snapped to attention. Advisors pressed their foreheads to the floor. The elderly official who had fainted earlier woke up and immediately fainted again from excitement. But Valera kept her eyes on Marcus, who looked mildly uncomfortable with all the noise. "I am furious with you," she said. And despite the celebration around them, he heard her clearly. "You have robbed me of the chance to embark on a quest to recover this blade. You have denied me the opportunity to prove my worth to my people by reclaiming it through trial and combat. You have stripped away the ceremony and the epic journey that should have accompanied this moment." "Sorry about that," Marcus said, though he didn't sound particularly sorry. "And yet," Valera continued, raising the sword high above her head as flames cascaded down her arms, "you have also shown me something that no Valthran would have done. You saw an object of immeasurable value and chose the simple right over the profitable wrong. You completed your duty without thought of glory or reward." She lowered the blade and fixed him with an intense stare. "You are either the most principled being I have ever met, or the most foolish." Marcus scratched the back of his head. "Could be a bit of both, honestly. My ex-wife would probably agree with you on the foolish part." Despite herself, Valera's mandibles clicked in what was definitely amusement this time. "You will stay for the ceremony of restoration." "I insist. We will feast, there will be speeches, and historians will record this moment for posterity." "Your Majesty, I really do have that survey schedule." "I am not asking." "Human." The Queen's voice took on the tone of absolute authority that had commanded fleets and subdued rebellions. "You will be honored whether you wish it or not. Consider it your punishment for making me look foolish in front of my court by being more honorable than I expected any outsider could be." Marcus sighed, recognizing defeat when he heard it. "Yes, ma'am." "How long is this ceremony going to take?" 3 days. 3 days?" His voice cracked slightly. "For what?" "For appropriately honoring the return of the Sword of Eternal Flame, and the strange human who found it more important to do the right thing than to profit from the greatest treasure of our civilization." Valera gestured, and 2 guards moved to flank Marcus, not threatening, but definitely present. "You will be provided with quarters, proper ceremonial clothing, and a full explanation of why your casual attitude toward priceless artifacts is both infuriating and oddly admirable." As the guards gently but firmly began to escort him toward a side door, Marcus called back over his shoulder. "Your Majesty, for what it's worth, I think your great-grandmother would be proud to know her sword came home." Valera stood alone at the center of her court, the sword of eternal flame blazing in her grip, and watched the human disappear through the doorway. Around her, the celebration continued, her people rejoicing at the return of their most sacred treasure. She looked down at the ancient weapon, feeling the power thrumming through it and into her very core. Then she looked at the doorway where the impossible human had vanished, the one who had found the priceless and simply returned it because it was the right thing to do. "Yes," she murmured to herself, her mandibles spreading in what humans would have recognized as a smile. Yes, she would have been.